let's go. And so what is the EU Green Deal? First, to make things into perspective, because I mean, all the agricultural goods will be affected, I mean, by the EU Green Deal in general. So this EU Green Deal has been launched by the EU in 2019. The objective of this EU Green Deal, this is to reduce carbon emission of 55% by 2030 and to make the EU carbon neutral by 2050. I will send you the document after that. No problem. It's like there's no copyright on it. So, and what are the ambition of the EU Green Deal? So this is, yes, to become carbon neutral. To do so, we decided to define very technical and strategies and sectoral strategies. And we put a lot of money, I mean, on the table to make sure that the different sectors in Europe are able to do this transition. So there is 1,000 billion euros for sustainable development by 2030. It means the equivalent of 30% of the EU budget, which is a lot, of course. So to go into details about the main strategies, you have the first one, which is known as the farm to fork strategy. So this is the agricultural sector. And then it's already, you do have different regulations that have been defined, covering organic production, biopesticide, animal welfare, and so on. The blue economy strategy, you are not really concerned in Ethiopia because it's on ocean, sea, and aquaculture, and so on. You do have the action plan or circular economy, action plan zero pollution, action plan or circular economy, action plan zero pollution, action plan zero biodiversity, where you do have this deforestation-free regulation that is under the umbrella of this plan. And the new issue, this is a due diligence directive that has been adopted yesterday by the Parliament. And all those elements mean that it's mandatory, especially for a big company in the EU, I mean, to see what happens on social and environmental matters, I mean, in their business, but not only in Europe, but also their value chain. It means that it applies to the suppliers and the suppliers of their suppliers in third countries. So the farm to fork strategy, I will go fast because you're not highly concerned in the coffee and tea sectors, but we never know. So the idea, the global objective is to divide by two the pesticide, the nutrient loss also, and to reduce the fertilizer by at least 20%, the antibiotic for animal farm of 50%, and that 25% of the arable land in Europe will be dedicated to organic food. So here, of course, this last element do not apply to Ethiopia, but the other element, it means that if you export some good agricultural goods to the EU, you have to take care about, I mean, database on fertilizer, the maximal level of residues and stuff like this. Okay, so here there are many elements on organic production. I know that many people consider that coffee in many places, especially in Ethiopia, is organic by default. Yes. So of course this is no GMOs, urethane irradiation, the limitation of fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, and it's not okay. Then there are new elements of organic food. It will cover new products such as beeswax, sea salt, wool, and other issues. You will have, yes, it will be possible to have not only one company who is certified organic, but groups of stakeholders, which will ease, the process, especially in countries like Ethiopia. This cooperative where all members may be organic, certified organic. There are issues regarding the labeling and so on, and only in the EU will only recognize organic products those who are certified organic. Okay, with and so on. So certification will be key. Biopesticides, the idea, as I said, this is to reduce the pesticide, but it will be possible, instead of having chemicals, to use microorganisms and biopesticides. For example, using pest-fighting companion crops and so on. So here, processors may play a role in helping smallholder farmers apply and develop these techniques. Here, the regulation has not been adopted yet, but we know that on integrated nutrient management to reduce pollution from fertilizer, new rules will apply, and this is on the type of materials used to package raw materials, and especially processed products, and well, as I said already, the types and level of pesticide allowed, technologies allowed in plant breeding and cultivation, and so on. So here you have to check regularly the database of pesticide, because it will change in the coming months or years. And it has, of course, some consequence on the model of agriculture that farmers develop, because the idea is to develop more and more climate-smart agriculture. So then let's come to this big thing on biodiversity strategy and zero deforestation regulation, which is, we believe, the main problem here for Ethiopia. So in fact, it's not the first time that you do have an initiative on on deforestation, to fight deforestation. Since 2008, there has been many initiatives like RED+, like the last one was, there are issues in SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, like the SDG 15, and last one was in Glasgow, in the COP 26, I think, where there were elements also to fight this deforestation. So maybe we have to understand and to be clear about what is the definition of deforestation. So there is a FAO definition. So deforestation, this is when you convert forest to another land use, or you do have a long-term reduction of tree canopy cover below 10 years. So what are the main goals of this deforestation? Of course, this is agriculture, this is logging, this is urbanization, it can be mining, it can be new roads, it can be oil exploitation and acid rain due to pollution from industries and fire. So here we had the opportunity with Malta to meet the people from the Ministry of Environment, and we understood that the main cause of deforestation in Ethiopia, this is mainly smallholder farmers' activities. Do you agree with that?
We will see.
Good. So the objective of this regulation on deforestation free, this is to reduce biodiversity loss and greenhouse emissions by promoting producers who making products that do not contribute to deforestation. And also this is to reduce the impact of EU consumption and production, deforestation and degradation of the world. You have to understand that 80% of what you can consume are products that are imported, from third countries. So our impact, on the environment is huge, and on social matters also. So this EUDR focus, on 7 raw materials, which are palm oil, where beef, I have to put cattle instead of beef, wood, coffee, cocoa, rubber, and soya. And it applies also to the derived product. So it means that coffee, there's not really derived product, but cocoa, you have chocolate. And for cattle, you do have, of course, raw hides and skins, and also leather. So it means that this deforestation-free regulation applies to leather companies also, and not only to coffee. So then, what is the plan at the EU level? It's like every country, who produces these goods, will be classified by the EU and EU member states according to a risk level, either high, standard, or low level of risk on deforestation. And I will go, further to explain you. I would like to provide you the criteria that will be used to see how it will be made and how they will classify the country. So at the moment, all the countries are standard risk, but the EU has to do this work and this analysis before the end of 2024. So the 1st January 25, normally you will know which risk you are, what is the risk what is your level of risk, and in fact, while the EU will do this analysis, I mean, there should be some discussions with you and debates on how it works and so on. Because we understand that even if Ethiopia is a high-risk country in terms of deforestation, that globally coffee is not the source. I mean, it is not at the origin of this deforestation, because we understood, especially in Ethiopia, that I mean, coffee is produced on the shade, and so there will be like probably many discussions with you. I mean, on those matters. Then operators will have to do not only due diligence exercise, but also to geolocate the plot. So here, I mean, it requires not only to have for smallholder farmers to have, you know, a mobile phone, or if it's not the smallholder farmers, it's intermediaries or companies and so on who do this, to be able to geolocate each plot for each cherry that is sent to the EU. Difficulty. But normally, I mean, then you have to check these data with mapping that are done with thanks to satellite and so on to make sure that, I mean, around the specific plot, what happened? Well, to know what happened around the plot, are there trees that have been cut? Yes, no, and so on. So it's like, it means that this digital infrastructure has to be available. And this is, of course, difficult because the deadline for operators to provide those elements, this is in 1 year time. Okay, so it's urgent. So company must also verify in their due diligence that human rights are respected, that there's no child labor, and that the rights of indigenous people and or local communities are respected. So, as I said, this is a coffee which will be made available on the EU market or exported. I mean, after the 30 December 2024, so meaning 1st January 25, that will have to comply. So I put you, in fact, I did, my presentation is a bit packed and long, but at least you have all the information to date. So here, every time you want to go further, I mean, you click on the different links and you'll be able to have additional information. It was the plan. So due diligence, there are several issues that have been to be provided. So, and especially, well, I will go into detail, but who is supposed to do this due diligence and also to provide this geolocation data? It's what we call operators. So the operators, it's not the smallholder farmers, it is the people, well, the companies who put the coffee on the EU market. So it's either the trader or the roasters, okay? And small SMEs, I mean, do have 6 months, 6 additional months, I mean, to comply with the EU regulation. So geolocation, we know that it's complicated because it's like it requires air photo satellite and so on. So it's really one part of the due diligence, and it can be done via mobile phone, geographic information systems, and so on, where you do have the latitude, the longitude, and you need 6 decimal digits. So why do we precise that? It's because we had the opportunity with Marta to meet Denu from the Rainforest Alliance certification system here. And I mean, the certification process, they have to geolocate the plot already. So they are used to do that. They use a software which is called Kobo Toolbox. So Kobo, I downloaded, for example, on my phone. And Kobo Toolbox, I think it's only 4 digits. So it means that it will not be compliant with the EU requirement. So this is a key issue, and I will provide you then examples later on with companies and initiatives that have been launched here and there. Like this, you know, you'll be able also to go further and to contact also the different institutions or structures. So So how will the company function? I mean, the traders and the operators at large. So either they will rely on intermediaries like cooperative will provide them with data, certification bodies, because I guess at Rainforest then they will update their digital tools, and then you can have national traceability systems. So I don't know, that's a big question also from the operators to know what can be the role of your role, I mean, in this process, and how you function while you have a network, I mean, with many people, I mean, in the field who is used to work with smallholder farmers. So what can be your role in this process? And otherwise, there are companies who only work on digital matters, I mean, mapping and so on. They already do it. It's kind of well developed already in Brazil or in Asia or South Africa. So in that case, you ask for a company, you pay for it, and to make all this data available, all these tools available. So it doesn't apply only to smallholder farmers. Those who are responsible are the operators, okay? And if they don't, it means that one, their product do not enter the EU market. Otherwise, I mean, if there's a fraud, I mean, they are civilly liable, and they may have to pay fines. Okay, so it means that it's really mandatory. It's really constraining for them, and they will really have to comply. So normally there is a stakeholder, a multi-stakeholder platform that exists at the EU level, and I encourage you to register there. To be able to follow what happens at the EU level, because in fact we don't have still all the information about the implementation of this regulation. The EU should define, draft an act, and all those discussions are done with private sector representatives, so with NGOs, and why not with government. So I encourage you to see and to follow what happened there, because you might have a word to say, in a way. And and to come back to this information, the information has to be collected on the date and time of the production harvesting. So it means, in fact, it's like the land, you should have like a digital tools to say, well, I'm here, longitude, latitude, altitude, this is this. And then kind of you have a registry number. And I understand that many smallholder farmers have less than 0.5 hectares. So, and when they harvest, it's like one day they come with 5 kilos, next day it's 7 kilos maybe, or 2 kilos. So it's like to work, on those elements, digital, registering and so on, mean that after that they are registered, and every day they arrive with a small production. I mean, we know that there's a bag of 5 kilos who is coming from this farm and so on. Because those who are not registered, I mean, if you mix those who are registered and who are who give their geolocation data and those who are not, if you mix, I mean, all that, it means that you can, everything is lost, okay? Because you need to have the traceability of, the all production that will be sent to, so it means you have to review completely the way you function in the field. Huh? So it makes it, I understand, very difficult. So here I found, because the operators we met were so anxious and stressed, not finding issues about this geolocation, that we found different initiatives. So there is one initiative done by GIZ in Oromia region, okay, and it's called Ag Unity, where they develop with 3,500 smallholder farmers, these digital tools and these traceability systems. So maybe, it could be interesting to know more, for you, to see how this pilot project functions and to be able to extend it, okay, to others. Then you do have here, this is multimodal geospatial model. Well, this is very technical, huh? I have to say. I'm not an IT or digital expert, so it's not very easy. So you have other issues here. And here, Theory Mesh or Dimitra, it's companies who provide this element, these digital tools to companies. So I put you two YouTubes, so I don't know if I can connect otherwise on the 2 minutes video, but if I can connect on internet. But so here you will see how it functions. And it's very interesting, and you understand that the future is now. It's like impressive. But, and then I encourage you also to be part of Diasca. So Diasca, this is a GIZ project, and you do have Lars, not Karl, Lars Kannert from GIZ, who is based in Germany, but this is a project, EU, GIZ, with many stakeholders, private, public, they work with Google and so on, to try to harmonize all those digital and geospatial matters, to make sure that, all the companies have the elements and know which tool they may use. So already I took part to a video conference on last Friday, and I said, well, okay, what happens with Ethiopia, you doing things and so on? So the answer is no. And they'll be happy, why not? To better understand, what are the issues here. So Miss Tion, a family name of Tion, from NKG, you know her. Yeah. So she will attend a meeting, well, she connected to Diasca, and together we will attend a meeting on Monday with the ICO, the International Coffee ICO organization, on land mapping and so on. So it's like, well, it's very technical. Personally, I don't need to know all those elements. This is outside my scope of work. But I believe that for you, it might be useful to have someone who follow, those debates, those technical debates, and to better understand what happens. Also because the EUDR, this is one thing, but the US and UK, have already the draft regulation on the table. Okay, so it means that there's a huge trend to go in that direction anyway. So contact Diasca and try to be in the loop, really. So what will be, all the requirements for this due diligence matters? So first you will have to provide, the current element that companies provide, when they export some goods, but they will have to add, this geolocation information. Then they will have to do a risk assessment, where they will have to check the presence of forest and indigenous people or local community, the prevalence of deforestation or forest degradation in the country or in the region, and explain supply chain characteristic and so on. So also only last weekend the EU finally launched its EU Forest Observatory. So you will be able to see elements for commodities and maybe for countries. And so try to follow also, this website, because it should provide you with, technical elements. Huh? And then once you assess the risk, there is a risk mitigation with procedure and measures that can be defined. And among other things, you will be, here operators will have to provide additional information on how they assess how they do the risk mitigation, how they support the smallholder farmers, for example, to make them comply, with all those elements. So, and all that, of course, this is a bit complicated. So here, maybe I don't go that much into detail because it's for operators, but you have all the elements on. This is Article 9, you have the regulation, I guess, huh? Article 9 of the regulation, this is the information requirement. Article 10, this is on risk assessment, so that should take into account, all those elements, the presence of forest, indigenous people, the consultation with them and cooperation with them, and so on. And And the issue, I mean, also about, of course, when we talk about due diligence, we talk about governance. So the issues related to corruption, prevalence of document and data falsification, and so on. And assessing risk, it's also the complexity of the relevant supply chain. We know that, for example, Volcafe and NKG, it's a bit difficult for them, I mean, to comply at the moment, not only because they need to find the right information on those digital and matters, but also because the value chain is quite long, so they don't know from which exact plot, I mean, the cherries are coming from, because there's too many intermediaries. So it makes things very difficult for them to have this traceability and so on. So, and then, concern, and everything, I mean, this risk assessment has been done, I mean, on an annual basis. And then risk mitigation, where you have this in Article 11. So you may need additional information. You may call for audits, in that case, to and specific certification, why not? And take measure, I mean, to information requirement and so on. So, and also you can help, well, as an operator, you can try to support your suppliers, smallholders in capacity building and investments. And I will go further on that because controls, okay, documented, well, let's say. So then, depending on the risk, I told you that every country will be classified high, standard, or low risk. So those who are at low risk, the operators will, from those low risk countries will be able to do simplified due diligence. It means that the information, they will have to provide the information, classic information, plus the geolocation, but on risk assessment and mitigation risk, it will not really apply. So what are the checks? If you are high risk, 9% of operators will be checked by the EU or EU member states. 3% of the operators will be checked for standard risk country and 1% for low risk countries. And in case of compliance, as I said, there are fines to be at least 5% of operators' traders' annual EU turnover, confiscation of revenues from the relevant transaction, temporary exclusion from public procurement, and so on. So, EUDR and smallholder farmers, it's like also among the discussions we had. I mean, there are companies who said, but you know, it will harm smallholder farmers. So it's like, does the EU plan to compensate, those farmers? And the answer is no. Okay, so this is clear, this is in EUDR, in the regulation itself, it's written. While, the EU will be able, to support smallholder farmers, to help, the infrastructure, the governance system, to work with you also, to provide capacity building and investments, and so on. So, competent authorities, what we call competent authorities at the EU member states level, it's like normally by the end of this month, like they have still 2 weeks, to the member states, to publicize the contact name in each member state, the address and so on, of the person who will be like the national contact point for those deforestation-free issues, okay? And so we understood that only 6 countries defined their, publicized or gave these elements to the EU at the moment, while, we're still waiting for those people to be nominated and to be known, because, for you, this is also one contact, one interesting contact. If you want additional answers, from Germany, France, or Italy, or whatever, okay? So, they also may provide you with information and with guidance, assistance, and so on. The electronic interface, so the Commission shall develop this interface on the EU single window environment for customs. Okay, this is already the main entry point. Every time you export a product, an operator exports something, this is the main one. But now the EU has to adapt, and will have to adapt this platform, this is the main customs platform, to put this due diligence element and the geolocation information. Okay. Voila. So assessment of country. Let's do this way. So normally, yes, in 1 year time, the EU will have been able to classify the country. So what are the criteria? Here also, the information is in the regulation itself. So the classification is based on the rate of deforestation and forest degradation in the country, the rate of expansion of agricultural land for relevant commodities. So do we see an increase of the land dedicated to coffee crop? Do you have these elements, for example, in Ethiopia? And then the production trends of relevant commodities and of relevant products. So, do we see an increase of your production? Yes, no, why, and so on. So, the information will take into account not only the information that you, as ECTA, will be able to deliver to the EU or EU member states, but also other ministries, maybe regional authorities, also NGOs, operators, indigenous people, local communities, and so on. So, it's like the EU and member states, they will look for, all the available information here and there to have the most accurate information and of the situation. So then you do have agreement or other instrument between the country and the EU or its member states that address deforestation. Whether you do have national, subnational laws in place. Is, for example, we understood that you have in place the one law, forest conservation, voilà. And then it's like, if you make, the data publicly available and all that. Okay, so it's like, so the country will be classified according to those elements. Then, other issue on the EUDR, the Commission is willing to engage, with producer countries and in using different partnerships to address the root cause of deforestation. So, and here there is the issue of structured dialogue that should and of joint roadmap. So, why we met, the private sector, ECA, and so on, all of us, told us we really need a coffee platform. We are talking about a coffee platform in Ethiopia since 2010. We really need to speak one voice and to organize and to better understand each other. So here the EU, what they call, why not a coffee platform or dialogue? This is to have all the stakeholders. It's not only the government and the operators. This is a representative of smallholder farmers and cooperatives. It can be NGOs. It can be social, social companies and stuff. So, and I think that it's key. For you to speak one voice, especially because we understand that there are high risk at the moment not being able to comply. And so I think that apart from speaking one voice and having a platform, to have a clear action plan or where you stand, where do you want to go, for the 5 or 10 years with priority element. And I think that, if you have leadership, donors will be able to follow you. If there's no leadership and it's like, if we don't know where the coffee sector is going, then it will be very difficult to have technical assistance apart from a small project like what is doing GIZ, in Oromia region, where they will work directly with NGOs. Well, here we believe that there's a need, to see what are the main obstacles, all the sector face at every level, and to have all the stakeholders around the table and to try to, to try to have leadership and to speak one voice to make this sector really function, not only at the national sector, but to be able to have more competitiveness, in the international market because other countries advance and they will not wait for Ethiopian coffee, and this is unfortunate. Okay, so but most of the other coffee producers, I mean, there are not so many people, smallholder farmers, who work in their coffee sector, and it doesn't represent like 30% of their export. You see, so it's like it means that it's key. Voila, here it is. So partnership and cooperation here. I mean, also the regulation is clear about what can be done. So this partnership with EU and EU member states, it can be on integrated land use planning and processes, on regulation, multi-stakeholder processes, fiscal and commercial incentives. You know, you can have clear reflection on the overall sector and how to promote it and how to make it work. Okay, so land use, to ecosystem, it can be also climate smart technique, agroforestry, and all those elements. So all the regulation on coffee, now apart from this deforestation matter, I think that they are known by operators because all those who export to the EU know that. On pesticides, so check the pesticide database, there is the issue about ochratoxin, salmonella, and so on. So those elements are known. At the moment it doesn't change, but to think that that's true, the pesticide database will probably change for about, you know, the level of residues. So maybe what you should check also, the OECD has been quite in front to work on due diligence matters, and they have done different guidebooks, I mean, last 20 years on different sectors, so you do have an FAO, OECD FAO guidance on deforestation and due diligence that has been published, I think it's last summer. So I encourage you and to have it, and maybe also companies to have it, because what do you call due diligence? First, it's, yes, to identify, assess and prioritize deforestation risk, to design and implement a strategy, to respond to deforestation, then to verify how it works, and to see if there are remedies to put in place, and then this is to report, okay? So I should have started with the policy. But this is going in that direction, to report and to publicize all these elements. So this is the overall guidance. Normally it applies to companies, but that's true that there are elements, I mean, that the company will need to have to put these due diligence issues on perspective. So circular economy, you are not highly concerned about circular economy issues. This is the EU developed a circular economy action plan that covers, different sectors and especially agri-food. So what does it mean? It means that a review of packaging for also coffee sector, where you should have either recycled fibers, or recycled or compostable, packaging. So it means that I don't know how most of your producer and exporter package. They're good, but it will have to be reviewed by. It's soon now. It's at the beginning of 2026, in 2 years' time. So possible impact, we know, and I already told you that there are issues. We know that, the producers and exporters who are already certified with Rainforest Alliance, 4C and all that, have for sure an advantage because they already follow best practices and so on. But the thing is that we know, however, best practices on social and environmental matters. However, we know that this digital matters, it's like an enormous challenge, and we are not sure, they are not sure, that what is harvested today will arrive on the shelf of the EU, at the beginning of 2025. So there is a significant risk, that also industry actors shift costs into smallholder farmers and in order to access the EU market, because you have two positions. We know that all these elements, it will increase the cost for operators. Okay, so either they will want to pay a price that is smaller to smallholder farmers, or this is the EU consumer who will have to pay additional cost. which will be the case also. But the thing is that here the risk is that it might affect also smallholder farmers. We know also that unfortunately here in Ethiopia you don't have the adequate infrastructure. That's a problem. And also there are low levels of traceability and a significant presence of smallholder farmers. So that's all that put the country at risk, not being able to comply. So we understand that we heard here and there that, I mean, for smallholder farmers, those, if they're not able anymore to sell to the EU market, where, I mean, when they sell for the EU market, they receive a bit more premium than if they sell in the local market. So in that case, they may change, you know, and cut their trees and put some cat and, you know. So maybe it will be the case, we don't know. Maybe also, I mean, the operators who are not able to comply will look for other markets which are less sophisticated and less constraining. So will they be able to do that by the 1st of January 2025? We don't know. Okay? So that's where we stand at the moment, you know, on this EU Green Deal. And so adaptation costs, so of course, yes, there's a risk of dropping out, particularly, I mean, for SMEs, and it might increase the prices. And traceability, as I said, it's like key, because not only companies have to behave well, but they have to prove that they behave well, and this is also a big part of the work, you know, and they have to prove that what they do, that they put in place actions to stop, to prevent and to mitigate risk, okay, and they have to report on that. Here it is, my dear. So this is the EUDR. I'm open to questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.